This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Okay, it looks like it's 7:30, so I think we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business this morning, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rick Kaiser, who will be joining the Redevelopment Authority right now. Welcome this moment. Thank you.
Do you want to tap the mic just or like the bottom of it to turn on? There.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Yeah.
it's red, green. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
The old ones were just red,
I
right?
know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tricky. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, let's just redo that again since now we have the mics on. I'd like to introduce Rick Kaiser, who will be joining us to the RDA as of this meeting.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be joining an interesting and eclectic group of individuals.
Second order of business is the minutes from the meeting of December 18th of last year. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 3 is the financial statements.
This on? Nope. Yeah, works very well.
That's red, isn't it? That's
Yeah, who knows? I guess just introduce myself. My name is Jason Roloff. I'm a budget analyst here with the city, and I'm here to give the financial report for the month of January. Attached is the RDA budget and actuals report as of January 31st, 2020. This report presents year-to-date budgeted and actual expenditures in the operating budget and actual expenditures in the capital budget. Revenues and expenditures and other funding sources are reported once they are realized. As of January 31st, 2020, for fiscal year 2020, the RDA operating expenditures total $0. Expenditures such as utilities will be accrued back to January once the city receives invoices for those services. As of January 31st, there were no capital expenditures either. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions on the financial statement? Again, seeing none, look for a motion to approve. Moved, second?
second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Welcome. The fourth item is the election of officers. So we have some folks have left the group here and some new folks have joined. So we need to re-elect officers of the organization.
So at this point, we'll need to select someone to be chairperson, and then we would need to backfill vice chair, and then also potentially fill the secretary position. So I'd probably start out recommending see if there's any existing officers wish to continue service.
I'll be happy to continue service in whatever capacity is.
I guess I would recommend Dr. Kemp to be the chair moving forward.
Thanks, Kyle.
I'll second that recommendation if that's possible.
Make a motion to do that, I think would be appropriate.
I move to elect Dr. Kemp as our chair of the RDA.
I second the motion to elect Dr. Kemp as chairman of the RDA.
Do we need discussion on that motion, or is that just something that? Okay, I think we'll just go. Yeah, go ahead, Catherine.
Just a process question, because I love process. For selecting chairs, do we have to say, are there any other nominations 3 times, or is that only for council business?
Yeah, nominations, usually there's a 3-time call, but again, it's not magic, but that is a typical move. So it's been moved
if you
and
say my name
seconded.
3 times, I appear magically.
I know,
in
that's what I was
Centennial
gonna say,
Hall. We're at
it's-
the university, so we.
Yeah.
Could we
The other
ask-
technical rule is you don't need a second for it either, but so long as this small group can figure it out, I'm fine with it.
Okay. I guess then, just to be practical, I would look for nominations for the vice chair. Anybody who's willing to serve. I don't want to nominate anybody, but if, you know, if called upon, I will do so. So it's kind of like a, you know, yeah, exactly.
I would move Connie as the vice chair.
Okay, I'll be happy to second that. Okay, I guess we'll call for a vote on that. All in favor of Connie Peterson being the vice chair of the Redevelopment Authority?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we take a vote on the chair? Okay, all those in favor of Thomas Kemp being the chair of the Redevelopment Authority? So aye.
Aye.
Okay, both motions pass, and we'll move on to the
Well,
next
we
item.
need
We'll
a
need to-
secretary.
Yeah, we'll need
Oh,
to backfill
secretary?
secretary position.
Right, very good. Okay, nominations on the secretary position.
I would nominate Wayne Willie as secretary.
Okay, second, I'll be happy to second that. Any discussion on the nomination? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I think that's the last of the officers, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, everybody. And thanks, Connie and Wayne, for being willing to serve in these positions of tremendous authority. Next item of discussion is Block 7 discussion. A few items here.
Yeah, go. So Block 7, just to update, the last time we discussed this project, we had 2 proposals in for that we did not move forward on either one. The biggest issue relating to Block 7 has been the cost of parking. The project that was more favorable of the 2 that was proposed had underground parking that entailed about a $4 million price tag, which exceeded the capacity of the TIF to fund. So staff has been discussing internally and looking at some ideas of what can we do to get a little more creative and try and figure out how we can develop Block 7 that makes the parking less expensive. A way to address that, but still trying to achieve the development goals that the RDA has with that property. So one of the concepts that was thrown out is highlighted up here. This is referred to as a wrap building or a Texas donut in other terms. Basically, it allows for centralized parking in the center of the property. Typically, it might be publicly owned or privately owned, and then development wraps around it. Oftentimes going taller than the parking structure. This is something that's been kicked around internally as a potential way to address some of the parking issues and still see development in there. That would still allow for some commercial space on Barstow, but see the site developed out. The upper left-hand corner is probably a really good model or a good artistic drawing of what a wrap project would look like. Another option would be what we're referencing or potentially looking to do at the transit center site, which is some type of parking at ground level and then residential or commercial development on the levels above, basically condoing out the space. We're not sure which is best suitable for that. There's a lot of things that come into play when you start looking at different types of structures on a block of that size. Is the building big enough to do the type of construction that you're requesting? So one of the things that we're requesting is for the board to discuss potentially reaching out to an outside consultant to talk a little bit about potential development concepts within just the Block 7 focus and see what that space is appropriate for, what types of construction, what alternatives are out there for incorporating some means of parking other than underground, which as we're finding is prohibitively expensive on that site, and try and move forward with some more directed development ideas when we reach back out to the development groups. So kind of want to open that up for discussion with the board.
So this would all be public parking, correct?
Well, potentially. I mean, that's one way it can be done. It could be public parking that's leased back, and then spaces that are required by the development can be leased back to the developer. It could be private parking. And it's simply a different design for private parking. You know, that could be determined in a number of different ways. We look to see which is the best fit for the city and for the development who, you know, whatever type of development they're looking to do. But that'd be an option.
So is it underground parking with the development just not cost efficient?
The
effective?
costs have been consistently coming in, and Mr. Wood could correct me if I'm wrong, in the $35,000 to $40,000 per stall range. And with the number, it's a large enough lot that with the density of buildings that we were looking at to accommodate the parking in there, it was a lot of underground parking at $40,000 a stall. So the price tag that the last development put forward on underground for 200 plus stalls was $4 million. And again, that well exceeds the capacity of the TIF to assist. And parking was what they needed help with to make the project move forward. So we're trying to see if there's some alternative options out there to do something different to try and move this forward.
Would the analysis that you're talking about give us a greater insight beyond what you can provide or the city staff can provide in terms of looking at it and saying, like in that upper left-hand corner, something of that sort, how much parking is there, how much building development around, and how much value can be added to it? I mean, does the addition of the parking there prohibit enough value add with the other commercial development?
I think that's part of the question we'd have them address. For one thing, we're not sure how much space within Block 7 would be required to do a vertical parking structure. It may be that it takes up too much space to do a wrap type of building, or maybe you can't wrap all 4 sides, maybe it's only wrapping 3 sides, but it takes someone outside of our area of expertise to be able to look at the site, look at the dimensions, do some modeling, and determine, you know, what's feasible and what's not.
Thank you, Dr. Kemp. Thank you for bringing this forward and also just for giving a nod to the transfer center and a couple questions for you. How do you see this timing potentially syncing up with underground parking at the transfer center? You know, if a recommendation came forward to do this, is there a potential cost savings to maybe bid both projects at once? The second question is, what is a timeline that you would be looking for if the RDA gave direction to hire a consultant, that you'd like to have the information back and then present it back to RDA for a decision?
First off, I don't think there would be an opportunity to tie the two together. The transit center site is not looking at underground parking. They are already looking at elevated parking above the transit facility. The current concept right now is the transit center development building, 1 deck of public parking to meet the transit center's needs, and then 2 decks of private parking elevated above that. You're talking about potentially 2 different contractors, so I'm not sure that there would be a way to sync those up. Timing probably would not match real well. In terms of the other one, as far as timing goes, I don't see this as being a really long process. I would think within probably maybe the April meeting, we might be able to address some options. You know, ideally, we'd have them point to, here's the type of concept that the site's best suited for, and maybe do some artistic renderings of what a development within that site could look like. We do have within the RDA budget up to $10,000 for professional services, so we do have some budgeted funding to do this type of consulting work. But it shouldn't be a real long process. We're not asking them to redevelop, a large area or come up with, full architectural design. We're just asking them to address the site and see, what fits and what doesn't, what's not suited.
Thank you very much for the clarification on the first part. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And the information for the second. I'll have some statements to make after we're done with questions.
Any other discussion on the presentation? Okay, seeing none, move on to the next item. I believe it's also yours, Aaron. Sorry, I'm having to scroll back and forth because all I have is an electronic copy of the agenda here.
I did think we want an official motion.
We do have a motion written
That
up.
was added yesterday.
Yeah.
My apologies. Could I receive copies of all the hard
Yeah.
copies of all the
Absolutely.
motions? Thank you.
I don't have anything.
So Aaron, you said that you do have the funds in the budget for the consultant?
Correct.
Okay.
Dr. Kemp,
Yeah,
as they're looking for that, may I make some comments?
absolutely, please do, Kathy.
Thank you. So we'll be receiving a motion, and I'd like to speak, well, now that you have it, let's go ahead and move it, and then I'll speak.
Sure.
I'll move that we hire,
Well, here's the motion. So I hereby move to hire consultants at a cost of up to $10,000 to create renderings of building wrap design options for Block 7.
yeah, so moved.
Okay. Moved and seconded?
Okay, thank you. I think this is prudent for the RDA to move forward for two reasons. One, just trusting the staff and their expertise. I appreciate that they're sharing that this is not necessarily their skill of expertise, and so I just want to honor that a flag is being waved, and I see it, and I think it's important for us to move forward. Second is the timing, I think, is excellent. As we know, our city manager, who's also our colleague here, is retiring in May sometime, and I think it's really important that we try to maximize his expertise in-house as long as possible, which will certainly include this information coming back from the consultant and him working with staff as this comes back to the RDA for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion?
Just a question, it didn't address cost estimates and kind of talked about building renderings and so forth. Should we add some sort of, oh, in terms of the cost of the consultant, but in terms of the costs and, you know, estimates of what their renderings might entail in terms of
That we would look to
project?
do that all inclusive.
Okay.
We reached out to a few consultants to kind of get a range of what costs would be, and it would fall well within, all costs to do this concept would fall well within that parameter.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's just a okay.
So not only the cost of the consultants, but making sure our consultants review the estimated cost of the parking structure of different options and the potential increment value of the private build-out. So I think those are things, those are deliverables that we'll seek from the consultants.
I expected they'd be in there, but I just thought, make sure we'd ask.
Aaron and Steve, do you guys need that direction in this motion, or is this sufficient?
No, I think that's
Yeah.
sufficient.
Okay. Okay, any additional discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is update and discussion of the Liner site development with Monarch Ventures and the Children's Museum of Eau Claire. Aaron, I think that's yours.
So we have been actively negotiating. We had the MOU signed with Monarch Ventures, and we are moving forward very well with the development agreement negotiation process. We have a follow-up meeting with them in another couple of weeks to touch on some points, but that's moving very well. That went out in your packets is the current MOU that's been signed by the Children's Museum. We have been working with them diligently, Mr. Nick and I, to establish the terms that we have been looking at with guidance from the board at the last meeting. Not going to go through the whole document, but we're looking at starting out with our initial $10 square foot asking price for the land. There's still a formal lot split that will need to be identified. The Monarch Ventures and the Children's Museum are still defining what the final lot split will look like for their different projects, but that's being defined. We have some, within the purchase price, there are some requests that there'll be some potential land credits going back towards the Children's Museum to reflect potential expenditures on the site investigation. Other points, they are looking to guarantee a value on their current building, the old facility. So once they transfer over to the new facility, there will be some new tax revenue coming into the district from the old building. And we're coming together on most of the points. So at this point in time, I'd ask if there are any questions in relation to and also would invite Mr. Nick to maybe chime in on any other comments he'd like to make on the MOU, and then see if there are any questions.
Aaron,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Chair Kemp? Could you speak to the timing of when, if this is all on track, when we would expect them to start building the Children's Museum and when it might be open?
That's probably still a little open-ended. They do want to hit certain benchmarks in their fundraising before they would break ground. I think realistically, the earliest would be in the fall. It would not be in conjunction with Monarch Ventures, who has a plan to break ground in the spring, assuming we get everything approved in time. So we're probably looking at a later starting point for them. But once they hit certain benchmarks on their fundraising, they'll move forward directly.
I just want to make sure I have that clear. So the two projects, Children's Museum as well as the Monarch Ventures development, the green light on them is entirely independent. So one, Monarch Ventures will start independent of Children's Museum.
Correct. They approached as a joint project, but they are two separate projects, two separate buildings, two separate ownerships. Monarch Ventures has indicated that they will move forward regardless of what happens on the other property. They'll plan their construction accordingly. Obviously, there's some opportunity for them to share some costings in terms of overall site development, leveling lots, bringing in fill, et cetera.